From the moment we met Nima and Dawa, it was obvious why they needed to be separated. You had two of the most individual girls you've ever seen stuck together, unable to be who they want to be.
They were getting very frustrated being joined together. They weren't feeding well, they were tired, they weren't sleeping, they were fighting with each other. It was really time for them to have the separation.
Tikang sajang ni yung tikang kini ni hangtin te adwe long ni hangtin hana adwe ni yung kini ni na ni sajang lak chokola.
She said goodbye to her girls, not knowing what was going to happen. She didn't know if she was ever going to see them again. She didn't know if she was going to see one alive and one not alive.
The thought that one of the twins may be compromised by the surgery has to be considered. The worst case scenario is we go in there and we can't separate the twins.
There have probably been hundreds of people involved in helping these gorgeous little babies that happen to be joined together. We just fell in love with them from the beginning, I think.
Nima and Dawa were born joined from the lower section of their chest right down through their abdomen. They were directly staring at a mirror image of themselves straight in the face.
Well,
the twins were born in Bhutan, in the Himalayas, and it's one of the most isolated and remote countries in the world. Well, the medical system's still developing.
In our country, I'm the only one who currently works as a trained, qualified pediatric surgeon. I had also never seen anything of this in my life, though I had read about it.
I think life for them, if they'd remained joined, was very bleak. I think it's very difficult to perform many jobs. I think it's really difficult to interact socially, and it's very difficult for them to establish independent relationships with other individuals.
Who's on the left?
Yeah, Nima on the left. Nima's birthmark there on the left.
I first heard about them at a charity ball, and I became extremely interested in the girl's story.
I wouldn't want to spend too much time there. Look how close.
There's always great fascination about conjoined twins. How can you live so close to somebody? And when it's a child and you're a parent, you can't imagine what they're going through and how can they survive like this? What can be done for them?
Bumchu, the mother, is from one of the remote villages in the eastern part of Bhutan.
Ni Chang Shapaiga, housewife. Samin katangis ning songzum ni Turkish barmaga ana katanga pranga barmagi ning song niktsing ni unya barmaga pranga gi ning si ni zagi ning kung.
Her husband works as a helper in one of the private firms in the place where they live. So they cannot be said to be rich, but they had a normal, happy life with whatever they earned. Yeah, it was a standard twin pregnancy. We didn't expect anything out of the ordinary. The delivery didn't go as planned, so the doctors there, they decided to do a cesarean section. When they pulled one baby out, the other baby just came out together with it. So it was a shock for everyone who was there. We had to break the news to her that her babies were joined together at the abdomen. Like all of us, she was very surprised. She had never imagined anything of this sort. One of the junior doctors, he said, "What to do? So I said, I also don't know. Then I thought maybe I'll ask Chris Kimber.
I first met Karma 6 years ago when he came to some of our Monash International training courses. We soon became very good friends.
Wow, okay.
And we would email and write and discuss cases over a number of years.
Yeah.
He sent me an image of the twins as soon as he saw them.
The initial scans, quite rudimentary, that they could do in Bhutan, showed very clearly that the livers were joined. Beyond that, they were a mystery inside.
Essentially what happens with conjoined twins is that you have a single egg that's fertilised and it splits into twins, but they remain joined, and they can join at the head, the chest, the trunk, the abdomen, or the limbs. We have to be very cautious because there may well be several other anomalies that you don't know about. So the last thing that you want to do is to rush any sort of surgical approach.
They basically did the only thing they could do, which was wait and see, and the decision was made to give the girls several months to see how they developed, whether they got sick, whether they even survived.
We had to keep a close look on them because we know that if something happens to one twin, then we have to do some immediate emergency surgery to save the other twin.
Over the first few months, we were really delighted with their progress. But there was no question in our minds that the twins needed to be separated. We felt it was unlikely that they could walk normally, grow normally, and learn normally and function as individuals without that separation.
Chris Kimber contacted us to see if we could help them. We look at bringing children from developing countries who have a medically operable condition that cannot be treated in their own country. We bring them to Australia for treatment.
Conjoined twins Trishna and Krishna are sleeping in their own beds tonight.
Children First Foundation brought Trishna and Krishna from Bangladesh to Australia. It's over 10 years ago now, and facilitated their successful separation.
We approached the Royal Children's Hospital, who agreed, and so then it was a matter of organising all the documentation for the girls to come out. It's quite a process and it can take a long time.
Ni train 11 months de la kam ni chapter roksong marbasho. No marti ke sho week chongma milusbo.
Chris Kimber was travelling to Bhutan, so he called in to see the twins and he noticed that their health was deteriorating, that they'd lost a lot of weight.
They began scratching, biting, kicking each other, not allowing normal sleep patterns. They had chronic skin infections. They had lesions on their face, on their back, on their arms, and clearly that meant that they were distressed, they weren't absorbing all the food. They seemed to me to be very sick infants, and we immediately put them into hospital. I realised that now was the time to get them to Melbourne for surgery.
Basically, they're going to shoot it, fly on the wall. We don't know what to expect. So.
Photographer Alex Copland and I travelled to Bhutan to get a taste of the world they lived in, to see Bhutan, to see the environment that's so different to ours.
This one is Nima.
By then, the twins were 14 months old.
How do we tell the difference? There's a mom, she has a scar.
Both parents were extremely protective of the girls, but the impact on Bumchu has been immense. She's almost never left their side.
Bumchu at first took a lot of counselling, let's say, to make her come in terms with what has happened.
There's actually quite a deal of social stigma in terms of having an unusual pair of children like this. And a whole lot of cultural issues emerged that made it very difficult for the parents.
Irang piska utin masho ani. Shone buni utadabugan ni namsami. Shuli marbagal titang. Ay tirayang zani uninani tawakula. Roktegi omdabu chiwak sagilana ni turgibu.
We spent a few mornings with her before we said we'd like to take Mum to a temple. But we hadn't realised until then this was the first time she'd actually left the hospital with the twins in public.
We gathered a huge crowd of people, monks, old women, everyone following the girls around. Bumchu was extremely apprehensive the way she was talking to them. Then, the more the conversation went on, she just lit up. Everyone was blessing them. Everywhere we went, we just kept hearing the words, Nima Dawa, Nima Dawa. This little old lady asked if she could hold one of the girls, and Bumchu said, with a huge laugh, said, if you want to hold one, you have to hold them both. And the lady couldn't quite work out what was going on, so eventually she moved the blanket and showed that they were joined and said, I'm serious, you have to take them both. And everyone else started laughing, and at that moment you realised that they were accepted. This very simple room in the paediatric department of the National Referral Hospital in...
Grant has been working with Children First Foundation for many years. We have a wonderful relationship. We both trust each other.
Australia and their chance at separation.
So with Grant and Alex covering the story, there was a perfect opportunity for them to escort the girls to Australia for the surgery.
That's a tough line as to know whether you should be crossing that line or not. On this one, we were actually the best placed to be the ones to help. They would have been up for another $10,000 or $15,000 in fares. You can't say no, and who would want to say no?
The trip home back to Australia was a long couple of days. The mum was incredibly anxious about flying. She'd never flown before, never travelled long distances. Deep down, we had our panics. We'd never done this sort of thing before, escorting other people home and being, you know, we're journalists, but we're also caring for other people while on our journey.
Conjoined twins from a remote part of the Himalayas have arrived in Melbourne for life-changing surgery.
The twins arrived on October the 2nd, 2018, in a huge frenzy at Melbourne Airport.
I remember them coming through the gates at the airport. You could see they were underweight, they were quite frail.
They came up to our retreat in Kilmore because we needed to build up their strength and just get them just a little bit more prepared and strong for the surgery that was before them.
Bumchu, when she first came to the house, she was very timid, shy, but she quickly sort of came to trust us. Nima's, right from the word go, has been the more headstrong and more strong-willed. Dawa's more laid back and just goes with the flow.
Damiga dan samcaya naman ni pakam ni roksang ni maperang manyam pagi ni magi dang ni bulakam ni Dawa hai jatara mawa deli kena.
Poor little Dawa at times just wanted to stop and catch her breath, but Nima was pulling her along, saying, come on, let's go. And then there were times when Nima had had enough and she wanted to sleep, but Dawa was wide awake.
The twins had a series of checks, of scans to see what was going on.
From the imaging we've done so far, they largely share a liver. There may be a small part of bowel, and there is possibility that there will be a tiny bit of bone attached to the sternum, which may be involved as well.
The liver is a very vascular organ. It has a very rich blood supply, and so minimising blood loss is crucial. If there are shared attachments such as bile ducts, the complexity of the surgery will increase enormously. There's no question about that. It's the day before surgery and we're going to assemble the entire team in the theatre and we'll be planning exactly what's going to happen tomorrow so that we're all clear on how things are going to pan out.
So the plan, as you say, is to stay in the same room. So we'll have the one set-up bed for both the girls, and then we've got to bring that second bed in. The uniqueness of this operation is that we essentially go from one patient to two patients through the operation, and that really doesn't happen in any other sense.
It's a big team. We've got to split up into two once the twins have been separated.
Essentially, once we're moving, it's more about reconstruction, not about liver. I mean, the bowel we could separate and do on different tables if we had to, but liver we wouldn't move till that's under control.
There was even a discussion over what they were going to call each girl in theatre, because it's not practical to use the girls' names in theatre, so they were assigned a colour.
So that way we know what's underneath is sterile.
Nima was known as green, Dawa was red.
We feel confident that we've put everything in place to move forward today. The girls are in the hospital and will soon be coming up to the operating theatre.
Kolondela, cuci sumlula. Delenga ani nawa operation insu da dari nyara manila.
The morning of the surgery, Bumchu had to say goodbye to the girls. The moment the girls were being wheeled down the corridor, she went and sat on a chair with her nurse, and they just dissolved into tears. It was hard to watch.
Bumchu, yeah, she was brave, yeah. But she was worried whether both of them will be alive.
Dr. Kama flew out all the way from Bhutan for the surgery so that he could be a very special guest and watch on in the operating theatre, which was invaluable for Bumchu as well, because it was a familiar face and somebody who knew what was happening inside the surgery and could explain it to her and reassure her.
That early phase is really very much conducted by the anaesthetic team. I mean, one of the things even I didn't know is, could you just give the medicine to one and they'd both go to sleep? But it's not that simple.
Many of these procedures are predicated on, it's very important to get the person in the right position. The only thing is getting the person in the right position. In this particular case, you've got two persons, and we've now got arms and legs and trunk and head going in all sorts of directions.
When they did cut into the girls and see what was inside, it must have been a hallelujah moment for them, because they had the best case scenario.
There was a sense of relief when we realised that, yes, I mean, obviously they had a decent join by the liver, but we soon realised that that could be divided safely. So that was a great relief, really.
They then went through and looked at all the other organs. The bowels were joined in the tiniest way that didn't require a major reconstruction. There is a very clear moment when the girls are joined and all of a sudden somebody reaches over and picks one up. And you can physically see them apart for the first time in their lives, and she's moved to another table, and it's the moment where these girls are given separate lives and a chance at life.
I knew one of the bigger challenges wasn't getting them apart. The bigger challenges was getting them back together as two individuals.
They had to physically reconstruct the outside of the girls from their chest right down to their abdomen and basically build them a front of their body each.
And at the end of the day, as a team, we're all very happy with what we were able to achieve.
Mid-afternoon, yeah, was the first news.
Hello! How you doing? Good. And here's Dr. Karma. As we said, everything went smoothly. All the things that we're expecting to find is what we found.
She wants to say thank you.
It has always been our pleasure. They are wonderful girls, so we've been happy that we can do something to help, absolutely.
Namni sami operation chumni piska shoy paturga namni sami shonang pia ani ni wakcheng cheng hala ruminyong tuya ani noksam tang ni chokwa.
When Bumchu leant over Dawa, she opened up her eyes and looked at her mum, which was just beautiful, and mum cried. Nima sort of just made some little noises but didn't open her eyes, but mum was just relieved to just see them as these two little people. They were in separate cots. No one really knew how they were going to react when they woke and saw that they were two separate people.
But what we did see is once they started to understand their surroundings, they then became very anxious if they weren't together.
Right here. Not going anywhere, look.
And they demonstrated that by becoming very stressed.
They still needed to be with each other even though they weren't actually physically joined. So they were put back together. So it was nice that they were able to still be together.
After a week and a half, the girls were discharged. Wheeled out through a guard of honour of all the nurses and everyone. Bumchu, when she got downstairs into the general public, the girls and her were rock stars. She delivered a thank you.
And thank you so much.
She must have practiced that for days on end to get her English correct and say it, which says everything about how much it meant to her.
Since the girls have returned to the retreat following surgery, they've been having daily physiotherapy. The physiotherapist has given instructions to Bumchu on what to do every day.
Oh, whoopsie daisy.
They have missed out so many milestones. Like, they have never used their limbs, so their muscles in their limbs need to be developed.
As they're now 16 months old, you know, our goal would be ideally to get them walking as soon as possible.
Susah tap terkau tina ni colom malah lah ni rang sarang deni ni nyata kata ni cang ni unina ni chunjakul.
You stand up. You stand up too.
Ini nongre babu ani ni tiktang kata rang nongre rang dang me kalau ni babu ali lo pura rang rokseng kaga dena pula.
Yeah. Nima's racing along with crawling and stuff, which is great.
Caught up.
Has she?
Yeah,
so she's getting crawling.
yesterday.
What we've seen, you know, since they've left hospital is truly amazing. But resources that we have here in Australia simply isn't the available case in Bhutan. No, darling, we're not going to pick on you. So we need to get the girls into a basic situation where we know that they can manage with the resources locally. But because she's young and flexible, I'd be hoping that it will flatten down a little bit. Having been in that position for 14 months, you know, it sort of affected a little bit of their development, both facially. Their chests are not a completely normal shape. They're very good. But I'm hoping they're not going to be major issues for them. To be able to do that is fantastic.
We've certainly had criticism about taking these complex, difficult cases from overseas. And people have questioned the use of our resources for these children. Well, I think these are very valid concerns, but I think it enhances the experience and teammanship of the surgeons and nurses and anaesthetists within Australia as they deal with these very rare and complex cases.
The whole exercise is probably cost around the $350,000. But about half of it's come from the community via donations. The other half's come from the state government.
This is where certain collaboration with hospitals, say in Australia, can really have a value addition to training our doctors here in Bhutan as well.
The twins have been in Melbourne for more than 4 months. So all these days, Sonam, the father, has been anxiously waiting for them to come back.
It's been
a big pull for the whole family, you know, with Mum being over here for so long and 4 other children at home. How often do you call home?
Today and yesterday.
Yeah, fairly regularly, yeah. And you often hear Bumchu out the front, and she's giggling, and you go and look, and she's on the phone with her children. And so she introduces her children if you happen to be there, and you meet them all, and they're just really looking forward to Mum and the girls going home now.
I can certainly say as a surgeon that I think we've got them to the position where they're safe to go home.
So we're taking all their teddies.
The Australian community have showered the girls with gifts. There's been clothing, there's been toys.
We hand-knitted jumpers.
Umtursak na rokdegi japjarani nangma hiliga kamum duviga juta zaliga tuge gusongne rokte baki name sami japjarani nangma ni jagaloke ni bra japjarali la ji hangrang mala jangla songanyam chungawagi.
Grant and Alex are escorting Boomchu, Nima and Dawa home to Bhutan. I think Nima will go one direction on the plane, Dawa will go the other. No doubt Boomchu follows one, Grant follows the other, and Alex snaps away with his camera. So could be quite a circus on that plane going home.
Life will just go back to normal. They'll just become two little girls.
They're more than a story, they are friends. I just want to get her on the plane and get her home safely. It's actually really hard watching her be interviewed and watching all the attention. I kind of want to push her away from it, and yet I'm normally one of the people asking the questions. It's quite tough.
When all the children go home, there's that bittersweet sense that we feel we love them when they're here, and we send them home with all of that hope in our hearts for them as well. But, yeah, we miss them.
Sonam, the father, he's really excited. He's very looking forward to it. See, he's very happy. Maybe he's a little bit... He says he couldn't sleep the whole night.
Getting off the airport in Bhutan, it was just pure chaos. There was people everywhere. I didn't know who was family, who was official. We didn't have a clue what was going to be on the other side of the airport, and when we walked out, there was this massive people gathered around Boomchu and Sonam and the girls. Then there was a pile-on of these white silk ribbons, and I didn't know the significance of them. Someone then explained to me, no, this is to purify them, and the white is purity.
It is the most happiest moment ever in my life. I'm very much happy that I can't express my words.
I just felt very wonderful. It was so nice to see them come as two separate, healthy individuals. It was just awesome. I think that just because they were conjoined, shouldn't have any drawbacks. They can grow up as normal children. So they'll have equal opportunities like any other girls in our country.
Jang masyo sapkin de ji rok sengpe chalam pebini. Jang da bumatuk juani rok seng ga life ke pelik pujut pebili an mincakula.
Yes, very happy.
So happy.
So happy.
Happy. Dawa is happy today. Dawa is happy.